Hello, everyone, and welcome to the March edition of the Seekers Forum. I hope you're having a great weekend. And let's say hi to Jay Cobley. How are you, Jay?
Hello, Mark. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Welcome. So, this month, we're going to be looking at healing and resilience and the importance of moving with nature and not against it in the mysterious process of regeneration and surviving hardship. So, what exactly do we mean by moving with nature? And how does that attunement facilitate healing and strengthen us in our broken places? In the 3rd century BC, the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu instructed students in what he called the way or the Tao, teaching that nature and the Tao are one and the same. Wisdom, happiness, strength, and wholeness are the result, he says, of aligning ourselves with nature and her universal forces. Adhering to the Tao meant surrendering to the natural progression of life and death, the cyclical nature of all cosmic existence. Respecting the organic order of things and our true place in the great chain of being was the portal to an awakened life, Lao Tzu believed. He emphasized the intelligent design of nature and the Tao as a path without dogma or formality or religion. Living in peace and harmony with ourselves and our environment is the goal, which leads to flourishing in its many forms. So, to explore the link between nature, resilience, and healing, I've chosen 5 of Lao Tzu's core principles to serve as signposts for our conversation. The first precept points to the necessity of slowing down on the path to wellness and strength. As Lao Tzu put it, nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. In a culture like ours, the idea that slowing down, taking our time, trusting in the natural rhythms of the world as a way of fulfillment, and even accomplishing what we wish to accomplish sounds antithetical and iffy at best. We're trained to push, grab, struggle, and rush, to reflexively compete with others and ourselves. We come to believe that will is more important than attunement, and that aggression is superior to acquiescence to the nature of things as they are. It rarely occurs to us that slowing down, doing less, and relaxing our will is actually the master stroke. We're so used to our aggressive cultural stance that we forget how harmful unnecessary struggle is to our health and how stressful it is when we focus on bending the world to our favor. In a secular materialist culture, we imagine that the weight of the world is on our shoulders, and that if we take a break from overworking, overthinking, and overcompensating for our perceived weaknesses, we'll fall short and become slackers or failures or worse. And that's why it often takes a serious setback, a wounding, heartbreak, or some kind of loss to show us the error of our ways. One of the great benefits of misfortune, in fact, is how it interrupts this compulsive cycle and clears our perspective on what's truly necessary and what isn't. Surviving hardship can sharpen discernment and endow us with humility. Being reminded of how fragile and vulnerable we are, we're less likely to keep pumping ourselves up with unreal expectations and staying caught on the mouse wheel of never catching up, never quite being enough or doing enough. Rather than feel diminished by what we haven't accomplished, survivorship actually helps to bring gratitude for what we are able to do. Also, it brings determination to savor our time and not squander it on unnecessary worry. This slowing down strengthens us and engenders a new kind of ease. Paradoxically, it also sometimes leads to becoming more productive, more focused, more intentional, and better able to follow our inner guidance and flow. We may, when we slow down, find ourselves wasting less time, no longer in such a hurry to get somewhere, driven by the belief that we're forever falling short. In his book, on the shortness of life. The Roman philosopher Seneca describes this paradox very well. He says, quote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." He goes on to say, life is long if you know how to use it. And to remember these messages is so enormously healing because it focuses the mind in the present and it helps to alleviate worry over not reaching destinations and not fulfilling our oversized achievement oriented goals. Slowing down makes it possible to rest, which is also critical to our resilience. We often ignore the need for rest in exactly those moments when the body, the mind, and the spirit are most in need of it, when we're wounded. We sometimes push ourselves unnecessarily at just those moments when we most need to stop. So ask yourself, are you someone who gives yourself the rest that you need? When is your ability to heal blocked by the inability to stop and trust and to let things be? How much of your own stress comes from the compulsive push to accomplish with its unremitting focus on the future? And in what ways might you benefit from remembering, as Lao Tse puts it, that nature does not hurry, yet all things are accomplished? These are great questions that we're going to be exploring more deeply this month. The next precept that I'd like us to consider together is this deceptively simple quatrain. Lao Tse writes, "At the center of your being, you have the answer. You know who you are and you know what you want," unquote. At the center of your being, you have the answer. You know who you are and you know what you want. Now, this may sound obvious, but it's a truth that eludes a lot of us most of the time. In the rush of life, we can easily overlook the fact that the important answers do exist already within us. And our sense of self, our deepest values, are more intimately embedded in us than we realize. A lot of people who've survived great adversity will tell you that it's at those times when you're most raw, when the buzz of the external world quiets down, that you're finally able to meet yourself in new ways, to discern truth and falsehood with far greater clarity. When you're down and out, it's sometimes easier to make out what Emerson called the whisper only you can hear, and the deep knowing that's always within you. In liminal times, we're often better able to perceive the presence that we pay too little attention to, that presence that we are. It shows us the price of living on the surface of life, divorced from our own inner knowing. When we're caught in this kind of alienated state, we easily lose touch with nature and our natural flow. We can move through our lives feeling like imposters, abstractions, estranged, not quite real. With the mind in disarray, our healing powers are very often compromised. So instead of living in harmony, as Lao Tse teaches, existence can easily become a tug of war between the willful, self-important mind and the stronger, quieter pull of our essence. And again, this is how a lot of people spend their lives, caught between mental confusion and the harmonizing, clarifying power of being. In order to move more mindfully through liminal times, patience is necessary. Patience is an underrated virtue on the spiritual path, on the path of awakening generally. Much of the healing process relies on patience, the ability to wait as we mend after being broken open. Staying quiet and still enough to experience mental clarity. Healing is aided by mindfulness, by the ability to create a clear, empty space in which nature can do her work of repair. As Lao Tse puts it, do you have the patience to wait until your mind settles and the water is clear? Simple question, profound. What he means is, are you able to abide lovingly throughout your own changes without taking action when necessary? Because when you observe nature, you see that it's the give and take between action and waiting, pushing and pausing, that mimics nature's syncopation and the ability to tolerate inaction when we're in a healing process. Doing nothing can be critical to resilience, being able to wait for the water to clear, the water of the mind. Not acting impulsively for the sake of doing something to feel like we're in the driver's seat. Because the truth is, you and I are not in the driver's seat. We are never in the driver's seat, even though our choices can impact outcomes. Any bona fide healer will tell you that we're not in the driver's seat. Years ago, I spent time with Spiros Sati, who was a Cypriot healer who was renowned the world over and known affectionately as the Daskalos. The night before our interview, I attended Daskalos's lecture at Town Hall in New York and was amazed to see the stage littered with crutches and canes and all kinds of different mementos of disability that had been left there by members of the audience. A lot of miraculous phenomena had been observed around Daskalos, and I was really eager to find out how he had done it. So when I met him in his hotel room the next day, he was this imposing 80-year-old guy with this deeply lined face in a button-down shirt and cardigan. I got right to the point. And I said to him, "How have you healed so many people?" And Daskalos just laughed. He chuckled and he kind of waved away my question. And he said, "I do nothing. I do nothing." The phenomena, as he called them, rejecting the word miracle, were solely the result of the energy of Joshua Emmanuel the Christ moving through him. He was a Christian mystic and profoundly connected to Christ. And he assured me that people only call things miracles because they don't understand the laws of the universe. That when we finally do understand how energy works, we won't have the need to call them miracles anymore. And that's exactly why a clear mind is so helpful for channeling the power of nature and allowing healing to happen. When we get out of the way, we create the conditions and the process of repair can follow. When we interfere with conditions, when we try to take action, when we try to make it about us, healing is disrupted. So ask yourself, how does your own mind interfere with your healing? How do stress, worry, and self-consciousness conspire against resilience? Seeing how our thoughts sabotage wellness is an ongoing practice and completely integral to our own awakening. Healing also requires suppleness, relaxing into things as they are. As Lao Tse puts it, water is the softest thing, yet it can penetrate mountains and earth. This shows clearly the principle of softness overcoming hardness, unquote. Water is the softest thing, yet it can penetrate mountains and earth. This shows clearly the principle of softness overcoming hardness. Becoming flexible of spirit and able to shape ourselves with shifting circumstances and soften in the face of adversity gives us untold strength. There's no need to batter our way through life, to break down everything in our path like plunderers. Instead, we learn to flow through the world more softly, eroding conflict and ignorance as we go. We're able to become forces of change, not through coercion, but through emulsion, by softening obstacles as we go, by bringing change through non-aggression. When we approach our own healing in this way, as soft water rather than a battering ram, we end the war within us. We're no longer fighting a battle. Instead, we are flowing mindfully in the midst of our changes and refusing to carry antagonism in our belly. After all, water can't be destroyed. It changes forms, it scatters in droplets, it turns into steam or ice or residue. We know this from the hydrological cycle, as it's called, that water, like energy, is neither created nor destroyed. So when we remember that we are 60% water and therefore indestructible, we align ourselves with this oceanic quality in us that can move like water through hard times. It comes to shift our self-image, which moves from being solid like granite to being primarily H2O. So ask yourself, do you allow yourself to flow in your life, particularly in hard times? Are you flexible, adaptable, and capable of being soft? When challenges come your way, do you tense or do you open? Do you wait, allow, and remain receptive, or do you push and force and stress? These are wonderful questions to explore. And the last precept of Lao Tzu that I'd like to mention concerns our ability to face impermanence. Because, of course, this is the great mystery. This is the great challenge. And it's also the great doorway to our own awakening and peace of mind. As he puts it, quote, if you realize that all things change, there is nothing you will try to hold on to. If you're not afraid of dying, there is nothing you cannot achieve, quote. So, in other words, it's only by accepting life on her own terms that we come into synchrony with nature. To the degree that we resist our human condition, we block our own path to wellness. And that points to the interesting difference between healing and curing. You know, a lot of folks think that healing and curing are the same thing, but of course they're not. Many of you probably already know that. I've met many people in my life who died fully healed despite the fact that their bodies perished. There's one person who comes to mind who, to this day, 30 plus years ago, he moves me. His name was Horacio, and he was dying of AIDS in the hospice where I volunteered in the 1980s. Horacio was extremely emaciated and weak. He was a Puerto Rican guy in his mid-30s, but somehow he always managed to ask how I was and to whisper something comforting when I came into the room, as if he were trying to take care of me in some way. One day I brought Horacio a rose, and I'll never forget the look on his face when I put it in a vase in his bedside table. He was absolutely awe-filled. He was jubilant. He clasped my hands and he gazed at the rose with wide eyes as if it were some kind of a miracle that had taken place. Horacio smiled and then turned his head away, kind of drifting off to a quiet place. And a few days after that, he died. But Horacio died a healed soul. Even though his body had been a wreck, he was fully intact. He was brimming with love, generous, funny, and undoubtedly whole. Horacio had accepted his human condition, and being with him taught me what real strength looks like and how extraordinary human beings can be in extremis. It showed me that we are wired for resilience, whether our bodies survive or not. Because when the body falls apart, love and spirit take over. And that's the mystery. And I'm sure many of you have seen that in people who are dying. Sometimes the spirit glows as if the veneer thins between the body and spirit, and the spirit shines through, and the person seems bigger. And there's a wellness that comes through them, even as their flesh is weakening. So that's what I wanted to say to you today about being stronger in our broken places and how healing and resilience are connected to the natural flow of things. So, Jay, why don't we pull up the card and we'll get into some writing. Folks, I'd like you to just now please take 20 minutes to write about how your mind interferes with your healing. How does your own mind interfere with your healing? Be as specific as you can be, please. We'll take 20 minutes to do that. 10 minutes in, you're welcome to join a breakout room if you'd like to connect with other folks. Otherwise, just keep on writing. 20 minutes.